for joining me here at Power Mods. I'm a little excited because I get to put these new Cryptid tires on this Can-Am 1000 XMR. I know, they kind of look the same, but they're not really. The tires that come on this, on the sidewall, they say they're 30 by 9 by 14s. But if you look on Cryptid's site, they actually say that they're only really 29.1 inches tall, or from lug to lug from the outside. So we're not quite getting our 30s. Now I don't really know why that is, but don't worry, because we've got 30 by 10s by 14s going on, and they're actually really 30 inches wide. I do like these Cryptids. They work really well in our type of terrain. They get up on top and they just seem to really work hard, and oh my God, we get through stuff that's unbelievable. And they're very resilient. They're a really tough tire. They're great on the trails. They've got this center lug right here that just helps the bike rip right down the road. You don't even feel any chattering like the old silverbacks that we used to run. Rip your teeth right out. These work really well. They've got about 1.5 inches depth in the center and up to 2 inches on the outside here. The lug is flat right across. And one thing I did notice, we were playing in some skeg. If you just stopped, you could just sort of brap the bike and it would crawl up with these here. And they're thinner and not as tall. So these bad boys, they're really gonna do a good job. You can see that we've already mounted some of these up on these ITP SD Severe Duty Dual Beadlock rims. Check that out. I know some of you asking, you're wondering what these dual beadlocks are all about and how they really work. They hold that sidewall or your bead from getting knocked off your rim. Sometimes if you hit a rock, it'll pound the sidewall in and it'll knock the bead off, you'll lose your air, and it's a real mess when you're playing in the mud or in the rocks and you want to try to rebead that on the trail. These protective rings right here, they hold it in place. They grab onto your bead and they just sort of squeeze it in there, and there's no getting that out. One other cool thing is your valve stem is really locked inside here as well, which means you're not going to knock that, or you're not going to hit a rock and roll around and bust that off on you. So they're really an extremely heavy duty rim. They do have this in a single beadlock that we're putting on our brute force, but this baby, because it's so big, it's over 1,000 pounds when I'm riding it, we're doing the dual beadlocks. Very easy to install. One of the best things about this, you don't have to bring this to a shop to do. You can do it right at home by yourself. Now there are 16 bolts on both sides of this rim. You got to get them off. I'm going to do this. I'll be here a couple minutes. I'm going to take them off with this, but don't put them on with that. Now let me see. Now one thing often forgotten is the valve stem. Make sure you put your valve stem in. I didn't do it this time, but I have done it before, all right? I'm not gonna lie. Put that valve stem in, and I just sort of lube it up. And this is a handy valve stem pulling tool. Will it go through? No, it doesn't. Just turn that into there. Soapy water makes the world go around. Whoopsie. Bam, that's it. Just sort of pops right in there. Get that valve stem in. And put the cap back on it. That way I will remember the darn thing. Make sure that it is fully seated. And it is. I like it. That's the direction of our tire. And that's the spoke. So that's the way we're gonna do it. Soap is your friend. That's a funny sound. Oh, it's almost in the way. Oh yeah. I have my own tire machine. I'm just gonna hand start all these, then I gotta torque them to 6 pounds. And I gotta make sure everything's sort of centered on here. And then go back around and I do everything back to 12 pounds. It's a little time involved. We got time, because this is gonna be awesome. All right, so I'm gonna start at this ITP logo right here. That way I'll remember where I started. I'm just gonna work my way around. 6 pounds, crisscross pattern. See you next year. the right size? Just a faint click. It says 5 to 6 pounds for the first pass, and then 10 to 12 for the second pass. We'll do it 12, just because. All right, well, now one side is done. It's all torqued. Well, I came over to the other side and it was sort of popped up off the rim. You just want to tuck that down. Doesn't take much effort. Make sure it's sort of set in the groove all the way around before you put your locking bead, or your bead lock, whatever you want to call it, your locking ring, bead lock ring. There we go. And back at it again. Now, if you forget, make sure you check us out on powermods.com for all your tire and rim needs. And don't forget to check out ITP, because they got some pretty cool stuff. They've got a whole bunch of different tires for your driving styles. And of course, they've got a wide selection of rims, beadlocks, single, duals. They've got all kinds of stuff. Make your riding experience so much better. Uh-oh, look at this. What's happening in here? How did this get on my bike? Looks like there's a little bit of dirt in here. A little bit of. I always start these by hand. If you do it with a gun, you're going to strip one of these lug nuts. Guaranteed every time. Well, not every time, but the one time you don't want to do it, it's going to happen. Looking good. Kind of like that blacked out look, you know, but technically speaking, if I wanted to powder coat this sunburst yellow like the rest of the bike, I could have done that. Might still do it, not quite sure. I'm just gonna sort of semi-tighten this just to sort of get it roughly into place. Never tighten one all the way. You guys know that. I'm not a mechanic. I'm just playing around with bikes and sleds. Now, I'm gonna do it in here. I find with these, when you're torquing them, don't torque them all in one shot, because they'll just sort of keep spinning on you. Just go back to it, just like that. That's it. Oh, that looks good. One other thing we did do was we just sort of trimmed this a little bit. There's nothing in behind here. The plastics came out to about there. Small little trim, good to go. Oh, I like that. That looks great. We've got about 13.5 inches of ground clearance now. I expect it to be the same at the front. Yep, 13.5 inches of ground clearance, and they look good. Gotta thank you guys for watching. All we have to do now is, of course, go out and rip up the mud. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned. This is gonna be fun.